Thank you so much. Welcome, good morning to the Board of County Commissioners meeting for October 26, 2022. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We do have citizen input this morning. Rondo, would you like to go to the podium? Or go to the speaker, and we have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning, Commission. I'm going to try to be quick because I'm going to cover a couple things. First, I want to thank you again for being the most transparent body, governing body in Deschutes County. So we'll point out how open these doors were through most of the pandemic, including these meetings. And in contrast, we look across our city in Bend, and we're reminded that our present city council has transparency issues so great that not only were they closed during the pandemic, but they shut down the visitor section from 3 minutes to 2 minutes. That's how much they're in a hurry to hear from the people that they serve. Thank you. In my remaining 2 minutes, I'm going to give you something we've all been working for, and I have had huge personal investment in the education and experience in achieving this information. I have been given the map to the beach. It's not here, not yet, but I'm going to draw it to you while I'm speaking. Most communities throughout history have been built around churches, around banks. We're going to learn how to build communities that we've destroyed and that we're presently destroying with what we're doing with our economy. We pretend we know what we're doing and we keep on doing it, and then we say, oh, we don't like the effects of what we're doing. So everybody's talking about homelessness. So I now present my plan to end homelessness in Bend. This is a destination map, and I don't think I have to label it. If I have to give you any more clues than this, then we will have conversations. I am so tired of the greedy people in our community, in our country, dictating the politics of this country and pretending they don't know what causes homelessness or how to cure it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Rondo. We do.
Sorry.
Couple thoughts, Commissioner. Last time we heard from Mr. Bozell, he mentioned charter form of government. I just wanted to point out that 2006 was the last time we voted on that as a county, and it could come around again. So a charter form for the Board of Commissioners. So as I say, Ron and I spoke since the last meeting, and he was surprised to know that we had voted on charter form of government in 2006. So just acknowledging that. And then also, it's also mentioned that maybe those areas that were highlighted at the edge of Bend, I think that was the map, could be opportunity zones, it could be a terminology, or just, what can we do at the edges of the town? So I think that was the message we just received.
Thank you. Accurate.
I guess the comment I would like to make is thank you for recognizing the county for continuing to hold open meetings throughout the pandemic. I would say that is one dimension of transparency, but there are certainly other dimensions of transparency that I wouldn't necessarily say we're the best or the worst on. But thank you for emphasizing transparency.
And I would like to say we have a citizen input from someone regarding the lighting, and that has been forwarded to Will Groves for our lighting ordinance. And then we have another email regarding our abortion stand by Commissioner DeBona and myself. So thank you for those. Is there anyone on Zoom, Stephanie? No one on Zoom this morning? Okay. And Rhonda, thank you for joining us. Let's go to our consent agenda.
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
And I will second it.
Any further discussion?
I guess I would just like to once again thank the City of Bend for their contribution to our crisis services programs. Very exciting what we're going to be able to do with those additional funds.
Okay. Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
Commissioner DeBonne?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So now we go to item number 5, the Stabilization Center. And it looks like Chandra? Thank you. And Holly, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Chandra Mola, Program Manager for the Behavioral Health Medical Team. And
Hi, Holly Harris, Program Manager for the Crisis Program.
I am here today to request consideration and approval for document number 2022-716, Iris Telehealth for the Crisis Stabilization Center. This contract will provide 30 hours a week of services from a psychiatric nurse practitioner for the Stabilization Center. The primary purpose is to mitigate crisis by bridging the gap until we can get clients connected to the proper teams. The nurse practitioner might refill medications or reinitiate medications or adjust medications, kind of what's ever needed until they're connected. It will be funded by the Justice and Mental Health Program grant. When those funds are exhausted, it will revert to the medical team budget. Happy to answer any questions.
I was curious in terms of psychiatric treatment, nurse practitioner services. What proportion of the total provided at the Crisis Stabilization Center is provided through telehealth versus through other means?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't know that I have a specific answer for you, but we historically only had about 20 hours a week, so this will be an increase for us, which we're very excited about. And it's really just kind of hit and miss as to what the need is for anybody who walks in on a given day. Not everybody needs their medications adjusted. Not everybody needs to see a psychiatric provider or even needs to be on meds at all. And so it's really for those individuals that are in that higher acuity area that maybe have gotten off their meds, gotten disconnected from services, maybe their meds are no longer working, that we now have immediate access. We've had it in the past, but as you all know, it's been a struggle to find providers. And so we're very excited. We found a very solid provider through this contract. And so it allows us to connect those people immediately in lieu of sending them to the emergency department to get that same service.
Okay.
And so I would say probably, if I had to guess, it's really kind of just an anecdotal guess, I would say probably only about maybe like 25% of the people that we serve at the Stabilization Center end up needing to go this route, and they sometimes have to go this route a couple of times.
Okay, and that's really helpful to understand. But I was also I think one of the things I was trying to figure out is whether there are psychiatric nurse practitioner services offered in person at the Stabilization Center at all. When it doesn't sound like.
No.
So this is our resource efficient way of delivering that service. Well, that's really helpful.
And one thing I'll say about telehealth in the crisis arena is that I have actually had experience working in person with providers at the Stabilization Center and both via telehealth. And telehealth actually can work quite well in the crisis world because we're not long-term treatment. We are really a bridge to get them connected to long-term treatment. So it's really that immediate access, and it's not as critical for the relationship building part of things that can be more advantageous in a one-on-one in-person setting.
Right, and I'm guessing that there's someone else from the Stabilization Center involved who is building that one-on-one in-person relationship.
Yes, we have a
Just
case
kind of
manager.
pulling in the telehealth nurse practitioner.
We do. We will support a client with a case manager while they're in the session with the telehealth provider, if that's what they need or want. If they don't want us in there, we won't. But it allows us to kind of support them, especially for our more dysregulated folks that are maybe struggling with that situation, that we can help them navigate that.
Right. It's really helpful to understand how that all works. Thank you.
So Holly, if it's 30 hours, is this 7 days a week that service is offered?
I don't know that we've worked out the exact schedule at this point. We're kind of waiting for the contract to be finalized. But I would like to have as many days as possible available to us. So hopefully the provider will be able to give us as many days as we can get. Because that is, having that immediate access every day is really how it works best. We are limited in what providers will allow us to have.
Okay, so we just don't know yet if it will be
We've worked
7
out the
days or
schedule,
not.
have we?
We have not.
Okay, yeah, we haven't worked out the schedule yet.
Okay, thank you.
No, good discussion. So I'm supportive. So I'll move approval of a board signature of services provided by Iris Telehealth for the Crisis Stabilization Center, document number 2022-716.
Second.
Any further discussion? Commissioner DeBonne?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
One other question I do have is, so we work with Iris Telehealth in other programs. Do you know off the top of your head where those other connections are?
I'll let Chandra answer this.
Yeah, so we have actually historically used IRIS for quite some time now, primarily in the adult outpatient behavioral health arena, but we also have a provider serving for our older adults team and our South County office currently, and telehealth has been working very well.
And so is this a new additional relationship with Iris Telehealth?
It is. We've added an additional provider to support the stabilization center. And we've been working to do this for about a year. And we have not had much success in finding providers that want to work in that setting. Crisis just unfortunately isn't for everyone. And so we found a wonderful provider who actually really thrives in this type of environment. So we're excited to see what the relationship we can form.
Great.
I noticed they're out of Austin, Texas.
Yes.
Okay, and that's where they are. They're not like in Portland too, but they're in Austin.
They're in Austin. Yep.
Okay.
And like all their whole network of providers is in Austin as well? It's not like spread across the nation or something like that, or?
The network of providers is spread across the nation. So we have one from Oklahoma, we have one from North Carolina,
Wow.
and Donna Litton is actually from Texas. So, yeah.
Okay.
Good to know.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you for joining us.
Of course. Have a great day.
Okay, item number 6. Laura, would you like for the Sisters Cold Weather Shelter? I know it was cold this morning.
It was. Thank you, Laura Skundrick, Management Analyst. So earlier this month, the board requested an update, status update on cold weather shelters and Sisters. So today with us, we have Molly Jones, Board Chair of Sisters Cold Weather Shelter. And then we also have the City of Sisters here with us, who are available for any questions here in the room. We have Nancy Connolly, Council President, Carrie Prosser, Assistant to the City Manager and City Recorder, and Joe O'Neill, the Finance Director and Interim City Manager. So I will go ahead and hand it over to Molly to get us started.
Great. Thank you, Molly, for joining us today. I hope you guys were all riding in the same car safely.
Thank you for inviting me. I have about a 5-minute speech, and then I'll turn it over for questions if that works.
Oh, no, that's great.
Okay, great.
We really want to hear what.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so my name is Molly Jones, and I'm the president with Sisters Cold Weather Shelter, as you mentioned. So Sisters Cold Weather Shelter has been operating in Sisters since 2018. They started to offer shelter during the coldest winter months out of the year. Historically, the churches have been able to provide the facilities for the shelter to be housed in. And our staff is just volunteers, actually not staff. There's 6 board members, and then we have an array of community members that also support for outreach efforts. So the main goals, of course, are shelter and sustenance and food, and then we also provide social connection as well. So that social interaction piece is pretty pivotal in gaining folks' trust and connecting people and sisters who may not have otherwise had the chance to meet. So during the shelter that has previously happened, the volunteers are just community members that serve meals to folks before the nighttime shelter service happens. So people in the community are able to touch base, meet each other who maybe might not have met before. So, however, this year we were unable to secure a location for the duration of the winter. There's varying reasons with the churches that they weren't able to offer that space. We weren't able to come up with a rental facility either. So, and there was staffing issues on our end. It does require a lot of staffing to offer a safe and successful overnight shelter. So we've pivoted for this winter. We're not able to offer a shelter, but we still wanted to try and hit those 3 elements that I talked about earlier, which is offering some sort of warmth, offering some sustenance, and also providing that pivotal social interaction to individuals. So what we're planning to do is offer a 2-hour meal window that folks can still come and get meals. We've talked with the churches, and there's a plan being made of what churches are going to be able to host that 2-hour meal window. So there still is some ways that the churches are interacting in that way. And so folks can come in. There's a partnership with some restaurants in town to provide those meals. There's also community members who will provide those meals who have in the past. And so that will allow people to come in. They can charge their devices. They can fill up their water bottles. They can still have meals and social interaction. We've also learned that some folks don't want to access that church facility, and so we've also added an option that is a grab-and-go style. So we've partnered with restaurants again and community members to be able to provide we're coming up with a facility that's just outdoor where people can come and pick up that meal rather than going to a church facility as our only option. If they would like another option, we'll have that as well. And that also allows us to still connect people to resources if they are searching for other resources in the community. Let's see here. The other thing that we do is we host a monthly outreach meeting, and in these outreach meetings, it's people in the community who are doing outreach. We're really grateful to have worked with David Fox, which is Deschutes County Behavioral Health. So he's been able to meet with us and provide supplies to the community. We have supplies such as propane, heater buddies, camping supplies, water jugs, and those resources can then be moved out into the community through people such as David Fox and our volunteer base as well. So during those meetings, there's also the United States Forest Service that's there, and COVO has been there before, Central Oregon Veterans
Outreach.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. So Naomi has been there as well. And, just some other things that we do. We're all volunteers and we live in this community. So just for instance, I was driving in town and I saw someone with a sign and I just stopped to ask them what they needed. They didn't need a shelter that night. They needed actually a bus pass to get out of town. They didn't want to be staying in Sisters, and we were able to provide them with that bus pass to get them to Eugene, which is where they were going, so that they weren't stuck in Sisters. Another person, they had some medical issues and they just needed help getting around. They needed a wagon. So when they go to the food bank, those big boxes are really heavy to carry to and from where you're going, and they couldn't do it. They just needed a wagon. So put that out to our community. Within 24 hours, we had them a wagon. That need was met. So those are the things that we continue to do while we're not able to have a shelter. We're still able to do that outreach. Let's see what else here. We've also set up standing meetings with the City of Sisters, which we're really excited about. So meeting with the city on a standing basis will allow us to open our communications, work together, talk about ideas, and anything that we would like to plan in the future, talking about that and figuring out what might fit best for Sisters and how that's going to be sustainable for Sisters. There was recently a community forum that happened in Sisters about houselessness, and there was overwhelming community support in that for solutions that are sustainable and that fit well for Sisters. I think we all know that Sisters operates a little bit differently than other places, and so we're really looking for those sustainable long-term solutions that fit for Sisters. And so as we continue to define a sustainable plan to support houseless communities in Sisters, we will need help securing funding for a building and for staffing, but we also, need support for long-term services for our board as well. We're all volunteer-based right now, and I think long-term that will have to change so that we can be long-term based, not just short-term. And while it's very unfortunate that we're not able to offer a shelter in Sisters this winter, we do hope that allows us to develop a future plan that fits for Sisters. Thank you, and if you have any questions.
Molly, what if we have a terrible winter January 2014, I believe it was 29 below. It was a record.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of a plan can any churches open up if, let's say, we know it's going to get really cold?
Yeah.
And that just seems frightening cold.
It's terrifying how cold it will be. And I think that's part of the plan that we have to put into action of like maybe an emergency contingency plan or something. And I can't speak to that yet of what that's going to look like. That is very much so on our mind of what are we going to do when it reaches this threshold? How are we going to come together as a community to figure out something?
Okay. So somebody in the community just donated a trailer to go to La Pine to help veterans down there. Have you guys worked, is there any spot, I don't know if small trailers would be like somewhere where people could go, but it would be, I would think, warmer than being on the ground outside.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I think it's just trying to figure out what we can do within our capacity at this moment in time. And, we had hoped that we would have a shelter for this winter, and now trying to change our plan and figure out what we can still do and do it well is what we're working on. We are very open to ideas and looking for how we can do that. I just don't have an answer to that part yet.
What about the safe parking program that's working in Bend and working in Redmond? What about that program in Sisters? Has anybody met with like Pastor Rick?
I don't have the answer on that, unfortunately. I don't know if anyone has. I'll bring that back to the team as a good sound reason that we can look into, but I can't speak to whether it has been yet or not from my experience. I am new to the board too, I should mention.
Oh, but you're the chair.
I am, yes. I started as a volunteer with the organization and then joined the board, and I'm newly president, so I don't have all of the historic information.
Okay, good.
In order for a safe parking program to operate, the local land use jurisdiction has to bless it and approve it. And
Nancy's sitting here.
act in ordinance. So, I mean, I would, if we're curious about the potential for safe parking in Sisters, I think maybe we should ask our colleagues from the City of Sisters to tell us what they know about the history of looking at safe parking in Sisters.
Do you want to come up?
Oh,
There you go.
great, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Hi, I'm Carrie Prosser. I'm the assistant to the city manager and the city recorder for the City of Sisters. So, to the best of my knowledge, we've been working with Cold Weather Shelter for many years, and I just want to put this out there up front. Over the past 6 months, it has been a marked change in the interactions and how we have been working with them. It's been a pleasure, and we have a lot more integrated things that we've been doing. So I just want to thank Molly for that and her board for that. As far as a safe parking program, Sisters is interesting because it's unlike Redmond and Bend that we have hundreds of thousands of acres of forest right within walking distance of our town. So we, at this point, have not been approached, nor has anybody brought up a need for a safe parking in Sisters. So we have not looked at it, we have not approached it. We have talking with Colleen Thomas and with what we've heard from David Fox, that a lot of the folks that are in and camping in the forest don't necessarily want to be inside our city limits. They don't want to be on our streets or in our parking lots. That's anecdotally, but that's what Colleen mentioned at the forum last week. So short answer is no, we have not looked into it. Could it be a possibility if it was a need? I'm sure that the council would look at it and the development code would look at it, but hasn't been brought up at this point.
Okay.
I wasn't able to attend the forum last week, but I do understand that one of the ideas that someone actually specifically asked for was exploring the Creekside Campground again, which kind of sounds like a safe, I mean, it's pretty similar to a safe parking type program. And I know that when there's been discussion of this in the past, the deed restrictions when the city received land and water conservation funds to purchase that property were brought up, and I just would like to say that any assistance that's needed to explore a revision of that deed restriction, I would be happy to provide. I know people in Congress who know the Land and Water Conservation Fund inside and out, and who are really closely tied to that program. I know people at state parks who we could, who we could urge to make something like this happen. I'm pretty confident that that fix to the deed could be made pretty easily if the right people were asking. So would welcome engaging on that if there's interest on the end of the city.
And so the council has not looked at that as a whole, nor decided. I know it was brought up at the forum as an option, and Councilor Blum said if people would like to bring proposals forward, potentially the council would look at all proposals. So it has not been proposed to the council, and they would, as a body, have to agree to that. And yes, there are 2 items within that deed that are restrictive, including one that limits it, basically handing the park back to the state if it's not used for the specific use that's on the deed, as well as master planning requirements within that park. It's our only park that requires master planning on it based on that deed. There are some barriers within that park in other ways, and we had a conversation yesterday with the mayor and council president and interim city manager about particularly this year. And if we're looking at this year, I don't know that we have the time, honestly, looking at this morning's weather and last night's weather, to follow that process if the council wants to follow that process. And what kind of, place could we put in, things we could put in place with less barriers to getting there. So I think it's working with Molly and her group and them letting us know, is there a need for that? Is it the long-term fix for that? And if so, if that process needs to begin, if the council is amenable to that, and then also really looking in the short term would be for this year and what can be done this year, because I don't know that any process on that campground could happen, right now. We're cold right now, so.
Yeah.
That's true. I definitely, just because it's a long-term project, it doesn't mean that we
Correct.
Postpone it.
Correct. Yeah,
later
no,
to work on.
absolutely. I think that if the council decides to look at that and a proposal is brought to them for that, that would be the starting point for the digging in.
Right. I did want to say when you said, well, Sisters is surrounded by public land. The cities of Bend and Redmond are also surrounded by public land, and there is a great deal of unauthorized camping happening on those public lands, whether those be county lands or state lands or federal lands. And one of the things we learn as we unpack this issue more is that there are people who really want to stay out there. There are other people who are very eager to take advantage of opportunities like safe parking or shelter when it's available to them to not be out on the public lands on the edge of the city. So we need to come up with the homeless are many subpopulations, and we need to come up with pathways for several of the subpopulations to be able to make a dent in the problem. So I guess I would just encourage the city to think about what you can do within the city. Many of these people many of the people living in a ring around the city of Sisters work in Sisters. And, from the perspective of keeping our economy running, dealing with these major workforce constraints that everyone, all businesses are feeling across our community and the state and the nation. It's actually just good economic development strategy to make your community welcoming to the people who run it.
And if I just might inform the board that tonight our city council will meet and workshop to discuss an RFP for a developer to build an affordable housing. So you had reserved 500,000 of ARPA funds earlier last year, maybe the year before, for the potential for that project. And we are getting very close to making those connections happen. So I just wanted to let you folks know that we are right on top of that, and we'll hopefully been working with your finance team to, when we need to get to that point of those funds coming back and asking for those again.
Because they have to be implemented and completed by, I think it's 26.
Correct, yes.
So there is a time factor there, or we have to send the money back.
Yes,
So-
and I believe we are, we're working towards that, and we're, if council moves forward tonight, then we'll start working with staff here and our staff to move that agreement forward.
So how big of a project is it?
It's a multifamily 42-unit project.
Okay. Does it have a name, or?
No, it's just in proposal form right now.
Okay.
And you haven't identified a location yet.
They have identified a location as well. So that, again, will be at the workshop tonight. Council's going to get the full run through that, and I know they will, I'm sure, update you on our December 14th joint workshop as well
Yes.
on that.
Are you able to disclose where that location is, or is that
I-
still
At this
executive
point, it's
session?
not, I'm not in on that side of the project, so I would rather not, although it might be in the RFP. I'm gonna let that stand for the moment.
Okay, 42 units, so that's good. Molly, so are you saying that no churches are able to step up this winter?
No, we weren't able to have a duration plan. So one church did offer us January, and to be fully transparent, we did not take that. And that is because the amount of effort that goes into finding staffing for that time and the time constraints that we were under, we wanted to know much sooner in advance and to start our planning much sooner in advance. And we didn't know until just a little while ago that we were going to have any churches at all. So that's fully transparent on us, that we had to make that decision, that we weren't sure if we could do that really well in that short amount of time, to not do it. And that's, again, coming back to that emergency contingency plan. I don't know if maybe that's still an option on the table if it does get to a certain threshold, if we're able to do something, but I know that there's other barriers in the way. Things have to be approved also, I believe.
Yeah, and we can talk offline about that, but
Perfect.
that resolution is fairly simple and easy to do, and perhaps we can put it in place as a contingency.
Yeah, and it is, I mean, you can take some of the responsibility for like that not being able to respond on short notice to a winter warming shelter space opportunity, but there's a lot of chicken and egg to this. If you don't know months and months in advance that you're going to have a site, it's really hard to put together a staffing plan and recruit volunteers to do that, and vice versa. I mean, so that's why it's so important for winter warming shelters to have a long-term predictability about where they're going to be, and then they can organize and plan and resource around that. So I mean, that's one thing I would hope that we're able to do. We're able to help the winter warming shelter organization do in the long term. Although, I mean, it's also it is true that there are people who, if I am understanding correctly, there are people who work in Sisters, camp out on the federal lands, have some sort of vehicle or RV that they stay in, which they would prefer over coming into a shelter, but which they don't have. They're not authorized to bring and park somewhere in the city. So if it, as we're exploring the unique situation in Sisters, if what's really needed is not a winter warming shelter space, but safe parking or some other kind of facility, then that we don't, I hope you're creating what your community needs, not necessarily just kind of trying to reproduce all the pieces that every other community has. I'm I'd be particularly interested in supporting an American Rescue Plan investment in that planning work that needs to be done. It's especially reassuring to hear that the coordination between the city and the winter warming shelter organization is going much smoother and is more tightly coordinated now. And that seems like a really good place to invest some dollars to do your homework, like figure out what the needs are and opportunities are, and then do some planning around what you're going to do long term.
Thank you, Phil.
Is it possible to have a hotel room if, let's say, we know the weather's going to go down to 29? Would any of the local hotels in Sisters be amenable to that?
We have done that in the past, and I just actually reached out to someone for best practices on that. So moving forward, making sure that the board is doing that under whatever the best practices are for that. So we are looking into that, yes. And before we go to the hotels and motels, we want to make sure that we have our plan and safety packet put together of what that looks like.
Okay, I was just in case.
Yeah, definitely it is an option. It has been done in the past. And we've also we are still working with the sheriffs. The Deschutes County sheriffs, we have provided recently gas cards for them. If there's someone who comes to town and is stranded and it's late night, we've given them gas cards and they're authorized to move that gas card along if someone needs to move through town and we're not able to get them a shelter for that night.
That's great. Gas is so expensive. I guess we're at the top end of the country for our gas prices. Even though it dropped, 21 cents this week, it's a lot. Yeah. And anybody that has to fill up their car has to feel impacted by that. So that's wonderful. So you hand those to the sheriffs, and then if they run into somebody, then they can pass them on?
Yep.
Okay, good. That's really good to hear.
Sorry.
One of the ideas that we're working on is campgrounds. And it's a big step to think we're going to put a campground on federal land, the Forest Service land. But why not? We've got examples of that around all of our cities. Just like a lake resort has, some campgrounds or possibly even cabins. And I'm not advocating for cabins, but a market rate campground, maybe in that natural location that's, X amount of distance from a downtown area, for people that want and need not an optimal housing option, but a little bit of services, water, possible dump station, maybe electricity. There's opportunities all over that, and that's federal. That's a step, but we're going to be working on figuring out, is that possible? We haven't added that kind of opportunity here in Oregon maybe for many years, and it would be a full-on partnership with the feds also, but. Let's look for that opportunity, and I don't know how many sites, but, a campground, why not? And then also, have you worked with Neighbor Impact? Are they a partner on this? So one of my thoughts is, we do have the joint office right now working on the big picture, and Neighbor Impact is the community action agency. They can provide resources, in a very professional manner also. So setting up for that January time frame, we shouldn't let that slip in our hand away either. So it's great to hear about that. If there's going to be an effort to, try to staff, just like you're saying, try to staff for 30 days or starting in January and then seeing if we can keep going until spring or whatever the goal might be. Let's not let that slip away either.
Thank you.
I do want to say that that the reason that the Creekside Campground is such an important place to look in a lot of ways is because even if you build a new campground on federal land, it still has the 2-week stay requirement restriction that all other federal lands have. So, designated campgrounds, dispersed camping in the federal lands, and they're to change that means getting that policy changed for all 191 million acres of national forest federally. So that's not something that feasibly we can do.
Oh, I mean, just document it as a, an issue to be discussed. Maybe 2 weeks stay is going to be good for a lot of people. And I'm referring to, remember I said market rate. So if somebody wants to sponsor somebody in a camp spot for 2 weeks, that's going to be a lot better than dispersed camping, even if it's a short-term stay. So, yeah, that's fine. Those are the rules. But, let's not just take it off the table, is what I'm thinking.
I was actually at the visioning meeting it was Tuesday with Ian. Ian was there, and we did discuss some of the things that you have brought up today. So, I'm so happy to see that you are the president, and I love your idea that when you see someone, what is it I can help you with? And it's not always giving someone money, but if they need a wagon or they need a gas card, something like that, I really appreciate that. And I just worry about our winter. I worried about it last year, too. I don't think we were quite as cold as we have been at times, but I know when it gets below zero, a lot of things quit working, and it's incredibly hard on the human body. So, 7 times more people die from cold weather than hot weather?
Thank you, Patty.
And your water freezes, right? Your water freezes, your water bottles freeze. Yeah, there's a lot of things that, so I think it's going to be good. I'm so glad you guys came in today. And yes, we need to see what we can help and work together on.
Well, we need to be ready for deep snow too. We only see that about every 5 or 10 years, but sometimes it comes a foot at a time, and then it comes another foot on top of that, and it really slows us down. So we haven't seen that in a while. So, and if people are more transient and haven't been here for more than a couple of years, they haven't even seen that one time yet.
And
my final comment would be one of the reasons we asked Laura and Dan to contact you about this and to bring you here today to speak with us about the situation this winter is because one of the resources that we have some control over at the Board of Commissioners level is these American Rescue Plan funds. And I already mentioned that making an investment in long-term planning, like kind of comprehensive look at this issue is something that I'd be interested in seeing a proposal about. But also, we are talking about this very immediate, urgent, short-term need of maybe it's not all winter long, but when you identify like, okay, if it gets to 5 below, that is, or whatever the number is, that is a crisis, and we need to have a crisis plan and some crisis opportunities and facilities and resources kind of set up for that situation so that you can activate it for those 8 days this winter or whatever that you have that situation. So if some ARPA resources would be helpful for doing that crisis planning, very near term, immediate, would welcome hearing a proposal for that.
thank you.
Oh, Carrie, when might you think that the new city manager might start?
We're hopeful it'll be the first of the year. So our final interviews are mid-November, and then with folks giving notice and whatnot, it will be hopefully
January?
January, yeah.
Great,
Early
good.
January.
That's what I thought I had been hearing, so. All right, good. Well, thank you all for joining. Are we good? Okay.
It's
so
great
nice.
to hear the current status. Thank you so much, and thank you
Thanks
for what you're
inviting
doing.
me.
Yeah.
No, thank you all for making the drive in, and I hope your drive back is a lot smoother.
The sun's out all of a sudden.
Yeah, wait a half an hour for the sun to warm things up a little bit.
Yes. Great. Okay, discretionary grant review. Stephanie, thank you so much.
All right, good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Stephanie Robinson, Administrative Analyst.
And Whitney Hale, Deputy County Administrator. I'm just here in a support capacity today as this is Stephanie's first time before the board,
There
so.
we go. Got the magic spreadsheet.
Great.
So this morning, I'm here to present the application submitted to the Deschutes County Discretionary Grant Program for activities taking place during or around the second quarter of 2022-2023. So each quarter, the Board of Commissioners reviews applications submitted to the Discretionary Grant Program and makes awards accordingly. And I gave each of you a binder last week of all our applications. Do you guys have any questions before we begin?
No, thank you very much.
So our first application is from the Assistance League of Bend. They're requesting $2,500 for their Operation School Bell program. Runs throughout the school year. The organization works with the local school districts to identify students who qualify for the program. The need and demand for Operation School Bell is currently several times the program's capacity. These grant funds would support 30 children and families with clothing essentials for the year.
I think that group, I really love what this group does, so I'm happy to give 1,000. Stephanie?
Put me down for 700, since she's doing 1,000. And I'm just worried about the numbers by the end, is why I'm thinking that.
Well,
Yeah, we'll see.
I just, look how much inflation has hit clothing, school supplies, everything, food. I know this group does amazing work. A lot of really good volunteers.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
If you could put me down for 500 for now, and maybe we can revisit at the end.
He just did 500 if you saw her. She'll also capture it right
All right, the next one is Bend Next. They're requesting $1,800 to support.
Stephanie, I'm actually in the first column.
Oh, you are?
Yes, that's me, and then Commissioner DeBonne is in the second column. So,
there. Oh, good catch.
well, I would have to pay attention. It's hard because you're looking over there, and I'm looking here, and it's right in front of me.
There we go.
Okay. So, Bend Next requesting $1,800 to support their Leadership Bend program. It's a 9-month community leadership development program designed to identify, educate, train, and connect committed citizens to leading leadership roles in our community. This grant funds would assist participants in need of scholarship funding.
I'll start off with 500 on that.
Could you put me down for 500 as well?
And I'll do 250.
Perfect. We have Council on Aging. They're requesting $2,000 to support the printing costs of a monthly activity packet that helps stimulate cognitive skills for older adults in Deschutes County. A sample of the packet was included in your binder with the application. They plan to distribute 760 packets each month throughout the winter and spring, and this grant fund would cover 4 months worth of packets.
500 for me also, again. Does it say after we get down to the bottom, we'll see if there's something else to be done,
250
but
for
there you
me.
go.
Could you put me down for 500 on that?
See, we can power right through these.
Yeah. All right, Education Foundation of Bend Lapine Schools is requesting $3,000 to support teacher classroom grant requests and needs-based activity fee support for students. So this is where teachers can apply for funds that help them improve classroom instruction and enhance classroom experience, and it also supports needs-based scholarships for middle and high school students to participate in after-school athletics.
I wanted to ask if this request would fit within the Arts and Culture Grant Program eligibility, or whether this is something different. And, you know, I see that they received an Arts and Culture grant in the past, but I'm not sure if it's for this, basically the same kind of work or something different.
So, yeah, I'd be hesitant to support, and not that I'm against anything like this, but, you know, this is economic development, emergency food, clothing, and shelter, and stepping into the education field is just another part of a spectrum that, you know, is funded in many ways by other efforts. So I'm happy not supporting this at this time, and arts and culture could be a real good fit, too.
I'm open to providing some funding for it as long as it's not better to come in as an arts and culture request.
Maybe if you want to move on to the next item, I can do a little background research and we can circle back to this one at the end. Would that be okay?
Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Actually, put me down for 1,000 if it doesn't work.
All right. We'll circle back to that one. Embers Wildflower Animal Sanctuary and Bunny Rescue is requesting $1,500 to update their website. The newer website will help Embers get more exposure in the local and surrounding communities. These funds would cover the website designer fees, and they have a plan in place for the board members to be trained to make updates and do ongoing website maintenance.
I would prefer to support Ember's Animal Sanctuary through the Spay and Neuter Grant Program, so I won't put anything down for this one.
They did receive over $2,000 last on 22, so hopefully they can put in at that point in time.
And I'm not supportive at this time either.
All right, our next organization is Financial Beginnings Oregon. They're requesting $2,000 to support free financial education for low-income Deschutes County residents. They have 6 financial education programs that they offer to elementary age to adults. In the next year, they would like to educate 350 Deschutes County residents through their existing partnerships with organizations in the community, and also identify some new partners. Financial education opportunities are scarce, and this organization is on a mission to empower youth and adults to take control of their financial futures.
So this is it looks like it's a statewide program. And it was good to see that they have a number of local partners within Deschutes County to help them deliver these services, which I think are extremely important. You know, sometimes I feel like when we get proposals from statewide organizations with a Portland office, that they're coming in with something they want to do, and they're not really necessarily in tune with the local needs. But this organization seems to be offering a very important service in partnership with Deschutes County organizations. My one question, and I don't know whether you could kind of flag this for asking them about later, is whether they're programs for adults. You know, so they do a lot of financial education for youth, which it seems like is a real need that I don't know of anyone else who's meeting. But for adults, you know, Neighbor Impact offers a lot of Neighbor Impact and other organizations do offer financial literacy trainings and education in our community for adults. So my question to this group would be, is that a redundant, is that portion redundant with what's already happening here in the county. And if we provide them with funds, could they focus that on the youth education? And with that, I would be happy to put in 500.
I'll do 500 also. And this
I'll
is-
do 250.
Yeah, this is in support of the partner financial institutions, getting the word out. There's a list of organizations, the Heart of Oregon Corps, Middle School, Shepherd's House, St. Francis, Caldera High School, Bend High School, so it's good to see there'll be outreach at those locations.
We actually participated in an event through Mid-Oregon Credit Union at Caldera High School with the sophomores, and it was fascinating how to teach them to budget.
That was Mid-Oregon Credit Union.
Right. I thought it was a great exercise, and some of the students actually donated money to charity.
Oh, wow.
I know. Several of them did. I was supposed to be selling them things, and they actually wanted to donate money to charity.
They're
I was
they were
so
putting a budget together. And
yeah,
some-
I was so proud of them. I thought they have been listening to their parents somehow. So yeah, it was a wonderful opportunity.
Thank you, guys. And Commissioner Chang, I'll make sure that some of it goes to the youth program.
Yeah, or just ask them about that. Thank you.
All right, our next organization is Habitat for Humanity La Pine Sun River. They're requesting $2,500 for critical home repairs. The organization helps families stay in their homes they already own by providing critical home repairs. Last year, we awarded $2,500 in discretionary grant funds, and this went to 5 critical home repairs, including a furnace repair, toilet repair, and stair access to a front door.
I've seen the pictures, and sometimes it looks like the whole wall is falling. You know, sometimes they just can't save it, but this keeps people from going to homelessness. So it is so critical, and you know, the more we can do to keep people in their homes, it's important.
I'm strongly supportive of the home repair work. My question was, did we, and I'm looking at Laura, did we provide funding for this function through ARPA? Okay, and that was a pretty substantial amount, right? 100,000?
100,000 for the same purpose.
Okay. So I mean, with that, I'm very supportive of this function and this work, but like I don't think that I want to provide lottery dollar funding to this as well.
I think they just figured out that if they just fill an application out once in a while, we'll do it. So, but yeah, I support that concept too. Let's let them come around again sometime.
And a year ago, we did do 2,500. At what point what date was the 100,000 that we did, Laura? Do you know?
What date?
Yeah, I mean, when was it? Was it this year? Was it last year? I mean, some of the projects I've seen, I'm sure, took a lot of money to get them back up to
So-
habitable status.
I mean, I just think one of the responses might be, these are possibly more flexible dollars than ARPA dollars too. So, as I say, I'm not against this, and there's plenty of need out there, so, yeah.
The agreement was signed in March of this year.
March of '22? Okay. All right, well, I'll do 500 just because I believe in their program.
And then a feedback item can be, please apply in the future.
And when they apply in the future, maybe we ask them to provide a little commentary on what they did with the ARPA money.
Yeah, that'd be good too, yep. There you go.
All right. Our next one is In Our Backyard, and they're requesting $2,000 to develop a K-5 early prevention curriculum. And this would be modeled on their existing Teens Against Trafficking curriculum. In Our Backyard is a nonprofit located in Bend with nationwide programming. on a mission to fight human trafficking through education, mobilization, and partnership. According to the Department of Justice and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, the average age a child is first approached by a trafficker is 12. In our backyard, we'd like to develop an age-appropriate curriculum so elementary students can spot the behaviors and tactics used by human traffickers and know how to get help if anything concerning is happening.
So I could have done my homework on this, but my question is, are they, when they say K through 12, is that do they have access to a classroom, or is it just the age group, or, what's the outreach effort? As I say, I don't know that you're going to have.
5 on our form.
Well,
Well,
yeah, I think there's different.
they do K through 12 overall, but their specific proposed
Yeah.
project is K through 5.
So as I say, just that integration, is it in partnership with schools? Is there a? Yeah, I don't have a feel for that.
I'm actually going to their event Friday night, so I'll know more next week.
This is potentially one we could follow up on to get some more
Yeah.
background
And
information.
then, our parent, because that's that classic situation where there may be a lot of passion here. Is the schools involved, and what are the parents hearing? And I just don't know,
Yeah, I'm happy to put in 500 right now, and it would be great to know more.
You just, okay. I'm at
I
32.
think specifically, know more specifically about kind of the channel through which they're delivering this education. Like, what's their relationship with the schools? Or are they delivering this education through outside of schools?
Well, so, as I say, I could justify dollars towards this, so how about you put me down for 500, but I'd like to, within a follow-up, as in, I don't know if they want to bring them to a meeting or just sitting down with us individually may be the way to go.
And I'll do 250 because I know I'm going to get to personally write things. So,
Yeah, so go ahead and do that, and then have them call me, I guess, I don't want to put too much overhead on that. I'll make a note for myself to call them. How's that? Get her done.
I think it'd be reasonable to have them come in and give a short presentation, just explain how they, or send us. It could be as easy as like a short letter. Just tell us how you're delivering, how you're delivering this how you're getting this education to kids. What's your channel for doing that?
I'll ask and contact them about that. All right, our next organization is JMJ Fire Protection. They're requesting $2,500 to help construct a demonstrator unit for their Drench product that would be used to educate local fire departments on a new wildfire fighting solution.
I think this is an interesting technology, but I don't necessarily think it fits with our discretionary grant program. It's almost something that they should have been at, like the Bend Venture Conference,
Exactly my thought.
seeking venture capital for the development of their technology on.
Yeah, it's good to hear about it, but I'm not interested in funding that one at this time.
I know their IRS letter's actually out of Twin Falls, Idaho, so it sounds really fascinating. I just don't think we might be the fit.
All right, thank you. So our next organization is Lapine Community Kitchen. They're requesting $2,500 for their hot meals program, where they provide a free lunch every day of the week at no charge. From January through September this year, they served over 11,000 meals. They also have a pantry that individuals or families can shop twice a week. And 40% of the population served are families with children.
So this is kind of they're going to apply every quarter, it looks like, but I'm good for 500 on that one.
please put me down for 500 as well.
And I'll do 250.
Great. Great. Leadership Redmond is requesting $1,200 to support their annual community leadership training program. The grant funding will be split and support both a scholarship for $600 and a day sponsorship, their government and legislative program day. This program is in its 17th year and typically has around 20 participants.
400.
400.
I'll do 250.
All right, next we have Perusia. Is requesting $2,500 to help fund their monthly movie night program. Doing business as Shripanya, the organization is a resource for individuals and families suffering from addiction and addictive patterns. The organization partners with other local nonprofits to show a movie and then host a panel discussion on the topics portrayed in the film. Most recently, they've shown a film on opioid addiction and alcoholism, and also a film on the effects of suicide in teens. These sober events establish a safe place for all people in recovery, their family, and friends.
I don't have any connections to this, and, I mean, this is a topic that's very serious, and it's great that they're working on doing the outreach. It's kind of like, just like I'd like to know more, is the same situation.
This is an extremely important mission, but when our team at Behavioral Health asks for funding or for resources or approval to seek resources for their work, I grill them about evidence of evidence that the practices that they want to pursue are effective. And I would love to see this is a very extensive proposal, but there's not really a demonstration of impact or effectiveness. Monitoring the results of the past work they've done to see what changes in behavior or in well-being have been accomplished, things like that. So I'm not interested in providing funds for this one at this time, and that would be the feedback I would give. Like I want to see evidence of impact and effectiveness of these activities.
They were just granted their 501c, or it's actually a 170B1 charity status a year ago. So, and we did grant them $800. So it would be good to have them come in, and then then they would be welcome to reapply, because we definitely have the need in our community. Someone that I've been working with just had another vehicle hit the fire hydrant by her house. There's an accident there every week by her house. Yeah, every week. And hopefully someday soon there's going to be something there that's going to tell the public to slow down or else stop drinking. Apparently, yeah.
All right, our next organization is Rimrock Trails Treatment Services. They're requesting $2,400 to cover the cost for 2 outpatient clinicians to receive neuroaffective relational model training. This is an advanced clinical training for mental health professionals who work with complex trauma. And Rimrock Trails has an adolescent residential treatment program in Crook County and then counseling clinics in Bend and Redmond. And they've seen a 62% increase in their services rendered since January of 2021.
This is an incredibly outstanding group, and thank goodness they're in Central Oregon. I really appreciate all that they do. I'll do $850.
I'll do 800.
$750, please.
All right, and then our last project is from the organization, the Fathers Group. They're requesting $2,500 to support their 8-week Ujima Youth After-School Program for grades 6 through 12. This program started in 2021. It currently serves 44 students, and they're expecting it to grow to 50 or 60 this year. Black students comprise just 1% of Ben Lapine School District students. This program provides culturally relevant, engaging space, supporting self-esteem, peer connection, and classroom learning.
So yeah, I'll need to have a relationship with these guys just to understand more. And it's another one of those situations where it's good they put the application down, and I'll do some outreach to get a feel for what's going on.
Please put me down for 500.
You can put me down for 500 too.
And I'm tracking it, but I think because you added some text to the row for Financial Beginnings Oregon, I don't think it's showing the actual my correct number, but
Oh, when you did the youth, it distorted the number.
There we go.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Commissioners, before you move into fundraising requests, would you like to circle back to the request from the Education Foundation?
Mhm.
We were able to look back, thank you, Laura, and the request that's before you today is similar to the arts and culture request that you received in 2020. So it's really the board's discretion if you'd like to encourage them to apply through the arts and culture process, which will have a press release going out announcing that opening probably today, and it closes at the end of November. Or if you'd like to fund it through discretionary grants, the overall scope of the application that's before you includes a wellness component, so it's perhaps a little bit broader than the specific focus of the arts and culture program, but certainly it would be up to you to kind of evaluate if you feel like the work that they're doing related specifically to arts and culture meets what you'd like to fund through the arts and culture program. So really you could probably take this one either direction.
Well, I want to leave my 1,000. Our kids in Oregon, are we like the bottom of the nation now? We are. It's so sad. They have been out of school so long. And our testing indicates that. So whatever I can do to help.
I support arts and culture on that one.
I remember that our arts and culture funds were pretty tight relative to the pool of applications as well. So I'm happy to put in 500 here and open to seeing another application through that other channel.
All right, are there any more project requests you guys want to go back to?
You can put me down for 800 for the first one, Assistance League of Ben, so just add 100 to it.
Thank you.
All right, we have 3 fundraising requests. So first, Family Access Network Foundation is requesting $2,500 to support their 2023 Fan Raiser Luncheon event this coming April.
Is the important thing that we only have $7,000 left? Okay.
For the year?
For the year.
Yes, for the year. That's what I thought. Okay. So on that high note, or low note, go ahead, Stephanie.
FAN's mission is to offer assistance, possibility, and hope to Central Oregon families in need by connecting them with crucial resources that help children thrive in school and in life. This event is one of their biggest fundraisers of the year, and they have a goal of raising $85,000.
I could see support, I'm going to kind of explain the big picture. I could see generally supporting all three of these and then acknowledging that, by the next quarter, we'll need to do something else for fundraising requests, which we may have flexibility in the big picture for this fund. Just the rollover balance of the video lottery fund. So I'm just throwing that out to start with. Because these all seem to be pretty appropriate amounts for their fundraising efforts.
So are you saying we should move $1,000 now to fund these, or just proportionally decrease each one of them to match the 7,000?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the one other thing that I'd want to consider here is that we have funded for both LCA and FAN. We have funded other fundraising activities recently, so I would want to have a sense of whether they're going to come back for, is FAN also going to come back for their annual luncheon, or I think the fundraiser is different than the annual luncheon.
Yeah, I attended the FAN annual luncheon, and that was all the service partners, and it was a very positive event.
Right.
They had a list of all the partners, and they acknowledged everybody in the room, and the value was having each person stand up, because there's FAN advocates that call on people that they don't even get to meet throughout the year. So that was truly just the whole service community getting together for a meal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, I think they're all.
But
that's
a different event.
These are awesome organizations.
Yep.
They're doing really important things. Fundraising is a really good place for us to invest, because if, it can have a multiplier effect in terms of, total resources that these organizations end up with. I'm just concerned about contributing to multiple fundraising requests per organization per year versus, one. So,
We could do $1,500 easy enough too, and they could really get them going.
yeah. I mean, or, I'd be happy to fully support these requests, but say, we'll look hard on a second request within the fiscal year.
Well, and FAN is, right now is time for FAN, with the kids going back to school after missing in classroom for a while. So this is the time for FAN, that's for sure.
Yeah, maybe that's my proposal, that I would support all three of these requests at the level requested, but just let people know that I'm going to look carefully at a second fundraising request within the fiscal year.
And certainly if the board wanted to, at a later date, have us modify our application materials to reflect that that's a preference, that we see one fundraising request or perhaps one grant application annually or however many times is appropriate, we can also bring that back to you for consideration in terms of maybe providing more structure up front.
Policy change.
Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds good to me.
Well, with that discussion, yeah, I support all three, and we can make it fit 7,000 or make a policy decision to.
I think it'd be good just to make it fit the 7,000,
Okay.
honestly, at this moment in time, and then we could look into what we can do. Things aren't getting better,
So
out there, so. it's
2,000 for FAN, 2,500 for Heart of Oregon Corps, and 2,500 for LCA.
Well,
Drops
they're
off.
asking for 2,500 though.
Well, it drops to the fives, to the $500 twice. So 2,000, 2,500, and 2,500.
I think he had
So you're
25
proposing
Just-
keeping LCA at 2,500?
Yep.
fully funded. You got it.
Okay, is that fine?
Well, I mean,
It's just an idea. I mean, either way, they're getting all close.
I think we should give everybody a haircut.
Okay?
We actually had given them 2,500
Yeah,
third
we've
quarter
all
in
given them all.
'22.
So
So, yeah, I think they all should get
shave
chopped.
500 off of each.
Yeah, keep it fair,
There you go. Spend it even less.
and then we'll have $500.
There you go.
So
$500 for the
we will
remaining
not
2
spend
quarters.
all our money.
All right, that's all I have. You guys have any questions or want to make any last changes?
Thank you, Stephanie.
Got
Thank you
through
so
it.
much for being part of our team.
Yep.
Yes.
And the beautiful binder.
I guess I got, kind of one broader question. I know we have like a slice of unallocated lottery dollars. Could one of the three of you just give us an update on what that is at this point?
We talked about that this morning, so I think
Yeah.
Stephanie has it.
So the video lottery revenue, as you guys know, is always projected, but right now we have a remaining balance of about 540,000.
Okay. So for fundraising events, if we want to kick a few $1,000s into there for the remaining 2 quarters, it's probably doable.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
Okay, well, the good news is we're on item number 8. Yes, Robert, Chad, thank you so much.
Morning, Commissioners. For the record, Robert Tintel, Chief Financial Officer. And
Chad LaValle, Fire Chief, Alfalfa Fire District.
so this morning, we're here today to discuss consideration of board signature on document 22851 and approval of document 22852. It's basically a loan for Alfalfa Fire District and their pledge agreement. And it's for proposed at $100,000 at 4% interest. There'll be a 10-year annual payment plan. The first 7 years basically are interest-only payments. The last 3 years will be the principal and interest payments for the final payment coming in. The rate is based on a 10-year Treasury note. And actually, I'll let Chad speak to the use of the funds and what the project is.
So as we discussed prior, probably about 55% of those funds will be used to install a well at the fire district. The other 25% of those funds will be used to install a backup generator, which we already purchased. The remaining funds will be used to clean up the grounds and do some paving around the station.
And with that, we'll open it up for questions or comments.
I cannot believe how difficult this has been, and I'm appreciative that Deschutes County is stepping up, and I have been working with Representative Helms' office on getting funding through the state so that perhaps this loan can just be paid back if we are so lucky in the long session. It seems amazing, but Chad, we had a conversation before the meeting today about the 2 children we just lost east of Deschutes County, and if you'll just let the community know the fact that I asked you about smoke detectors and what you're doing for those, for your community.
So here within the next coming weeks, we're going to be partnering with the Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office to do a community outreach program. We're going to be issuing smoke detectors in the community and doing some outreach about fire protection and how we can, better serve the community and get them, to where their houses are a little bit safer. We do have, you guys discussed earlier in the meeting about, transients camping and stuff like that. We've submitted about 50 smoke detectors out to just, campers and stuff like that may or may not have had smoke detector, just so they can be alerted if there is a fire within their camper. With the colder weather coming, it's going to be an issue. People are going to try to stay warm. They're going to try to light, heaters and stuff in their trailers. And we don't want to see any more tragedies happen. We don't want to see any more loss of life. We understand that that's part of the game in the fire service. But anything that we can do to prevent that is obviously our highest priority.
So thank you for sharing that.
So with this promissory note, what's the status with your board? Has it been talked about recently at a board meeting?
We just discussed it at the last board meeting. They approved this. We'll have to go back because the interest rate did change from 2% to 4%. I think the only question they probably will have is if that's a fixed rate over the 10 years or over the term of the loan. Really, they're pretty on board. They know that the servicers are well needed. After that fire that we had over in Crook County, we had to have our guys come back. We had them shower at the station rather than taking cancer and causing contaminants back to their houses. We laundered all their clothes, which we then had to have a load of water come out and have be delivered so that we could launder all their turnout gear and stuff like that, so that they step into them next time. They're not getting that stuff. Firefighters are at a high risk for cancer, so we want to make sure that we can do everything to mitigate that as well.
Great. And then is this is going to set the rate? I mean, there's nothing variable after this, other than it might have changed since the board meeting, you're saying?
Yeah, at the time we did propose, interest rates were a lot lower at the time when this first came up. And now, again, as we look at current 10-year Treasury rates, if we were going to invest our funds, that is the proposed rate. And we did give a range of options, but at the time it was about a 2% rate, and so now the rate is higher.
But it's fixed?
It is fixed.
Yeah, so, I mean, yeah, this will be a static point once we get this document proceeding.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm really glad that we've figured out a way to support these infrastructure investments at the Alfalfa Fire District that will help you better serve your community and take care of your staff. I am also really glad that we are with this loan approach that hopefully is on pretty good terms in terms of when repayments will start and reasonable interest rates. I believe when the discussion started, there was a risk of creating a precedent of all sorts of districts around the region being like, hey, we need a grant for our facilities, which would could be really unsustainable for the county. So I think this is a really good setup, and I'm glad that we got here.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Yeah. So.
I think we need 2 motions, perhaps.
Okay. Well, I will move approval and board signature of document number 2022-851.
And I will second it.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
Commissioner DeBonne?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
And I'll move approval of the related promissory note for document 2022-852.
Second.
Any further discussion? Commissioner DeBonne?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Thank you, commissioners.
Proceed.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
No, and thank you for the education you're doing for the community. I think that's just incredibly critical at this point in time, and the fact that the weather is getting colder. Let's hope that we don't have any more stories like that.
Let's hope not.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and just thank you for taking care of public safety out in that portion of the county every day.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Robert, you're so lucky. You're up next.
There we go.
That's right, perfect timing. Thank you. So again, for the record, still Robert Tintle, Chief Financial Officer of Deschutes County. So today we are here to discuss the September 22 Treasury Report and the financial reports. First, before I get into actually our Treasury report, I'm going to speak a little bit at a macro level about what's going on, and this is based on some of the market commentary we receive from our brokers. And the reason for that is because what happens at the national level really does impact us here with rates and impacts us. So high level, the Treasury yields continue, as we all probably know, inch higher as the markets have not backed off from the views that the Feds are going to continue to increase the rates. We are expecting a 75 basis points increase in November and potentially a 75 basis points increase in December as well. There is some belief that the Fed fund futures, the contracts, they priced in a peak at about 5%. But then they pulled back last week at about 4.89. There is some commentary that Fed rates could go up to 6%, but we don't know for sure what's going to happen there. There is speak that the Fed may not be able to pause rate hikes after it gets to that 4.75%, because the reason why they may look at those higher rates is because they're trying to tame down inflation. So that's a balance they're trying to get to. As we all, I'm sure, have heard, mortgage rates have continued to increase. The 30-year mortgage has hit about 6.94%, so almost 7%, which means also mortgage applications fell about 4.5%, and refis have dropped 6.8%. So again, these are national statistics, not specifically here. So finally, economic data last week also showed that this year's remarkable rise in the interest rates, it's clearly caused problems for housing, but it has yet to loosen up the historically tight labor market. So the drop in home builder confidence, it deepened in October. Again, this is nationally. Mortgage applications fell for the fourth week, as mentioned, as the 30-year mortgage rates hit the 20-year high. And nationally, single-family home starts and building permits declined, and existing home sales dropped for the 8th month, matching the longest losing streak on record, and now to the lowest levels since May of 2020. And initial jobless claims, however, fell unexpectedly and remained low. So there's some mixed items in the economy as well. One other interesting thing is on interest rates. I just talked about the 10-year treasuries at 4%. The 1 year, now we can invest Treasury, the U.S. Treasury is at 4.55. The 2 year today, this morning, was also at 4.55, but the 10-year was at 4.07. So this is the inverted yield curve, where for a lower period, you can get a higher interest rate, and the 10-year, a longer period, you get a lower rate. So typically, the longer you invest, you get a higher interest rate, but right now it's opposite, given the market today. So this market isn't something that we always see. So that's the macro level. So I just wanted to provide a few comments on that. Now we'll actually get to our Treasury report, which you have in front of you, and we'll talk about that as well.
Robert,
So-
sorry, go ahead.
That inverted yield is the interesting thing, isn't it? Doesn't happen all the time.
Exactly.
I was just curious, I don't know this, but I'm guessing that we do a lot of investment as our tax revenue comes in the next few months. Is that
Yes.
is that accurate?
That is correct.
In terms of over the year, that's when we do the bulk of our investing, or what we do the bulk of our investing with. And so, I mean, with these, with the treasuries, going up, and the short-term treasuries going up, I mean, what is that? What do you think that means in terms of how you're going to, the mix of investments you're going to be making?
Even right now, because we do have investments that mature monthly, right? And so we have to reinvestment. And typically you do always want to make sure you have investments going out, longer years. You want to always have your investments match your cash flow, current and out here. So you always need to be mindful of that. But yes, with the rates being higher at the shorter duration, I am looking at investing in nearer term, 1 and 2 years, as opposed to more the 3 or out years, to get that higher rate. And so that means the duration on our portfolio will be a little less than we typically would be. Usually it could be like 1.5 or 2, it could be longer duration, but investing funds for a shorter period is good for now. One thing we don't want to always try to predict the market or time the market. That's why we always want to continue to keep our investments flowing. But yes, we are mindful right now, especially November, we're going to start receiving a lot of our tax revenues. We're starting to receive them now, and so we will want to be mindful of that with investing.
And so this maturity distribution schedule, it might stack up a little more heavily
Yes.
in the near term.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep. And those are exactly the comments on that slide, basically, as well. Okay, so on the first page that you have, it's page 62 in your packet, is the Treasury report. So as mentioned, the portfolio balance at the end of the September here is 265.3 million. It is a decrease of 6 million from August and an increase of 37 million from last year. Again, a lot of that's related to the ARPA funds that we had received that we are still and spending out. Just a reminder, these are non-audited financial reports for the fiscal year, the first quarter of the fiscal year. Typically, we are down between 5 and 10 million in the first quarter from previous because we pay operating costs. As mentioned, our tax revenues come in November, so we know our cash will also increase then, but until our tax revenues come in, we will continue spending down our funds. The average portfolio yield is 1.22%, which is higher than the prior month average of 0.78. Again, that's low, but as interest rates continue to rise, we will see a gradual increase in our yield of our portfolio increasing as our older investments at a lower yield mature and we buy at a higher interest rate. So year-to-date earnings of $648,000. They are $252,000 more than the year-to-date earnings last year. And again, that's reflective of the increase in the rates coming up. So I do want to mention the LGIP, the Local Government Investment Pool. Their interest rates have increased from 1.65% to 1.90 on September 8th. More recently, this is as of September 30th, but just so you know, on October 11th, it is 2.20.
Because I noticed we were down to 35 million there in that fund.
Yep.
But it's 2.2.
Now it's 2.2. And actually, the interesting thing, our First Interstate Bank account, the funds we have in there, actually they match their interest rate with the pool. So we get the same amount of interest rate at the bank as we do at the pool, which actually coming here, that was a great thing for me to see because that's not typical. So when that contract
That must be a good relationship then.
Yes, it was really nice to see that because that is although that's a low rate, that's a good rate for a bank to match that rate there. The pool has seen 4 increases this fiscal year. So in June of 22, so at the, basically July 1st, it was at 1.15. So now with that being at 2.20, it is nice to see that increase. I do anticipate the pool as well will have a gradual increase. Typically, the pool does have a much higher rate, but it'll take them a while to sell off their lower interest rate investments as well. So the benchmark returns for the 24-month treasuries are up from the prior month by 77 basis points, and 36-month treasuries are up from the prior month by 79 basis points. So things continue to increase. As mentioned, I talked about the weighted average time. It's 1.36 years compared to 1.34 years. So again, we'll probably, that might also slim down a little bit too. And then just a final reminder on this Treasury page, when I'm investing and looking at our portfolio here, the safety of funds is always number one. It's foremost of funds. We don't want to lose any of our principal balance. And then we look at our investments, as I mentioned, to match our cash flow needs. So we need to invest in funds and have them mature when we need the funds as well. And then finally, we do look at the rate of return. That is important because the interest rate funds our programs. But again, that's mainly the last that we look at because we want to look at the preservation of capital and the liquidity of our funds. If you switch to the next page, 63 in your packet, again, that just, we talked about historical rate of returns, the top graph. That's just to get at, as you notice on the beginning end of the curve, October, the county's rates are in blue. And you'll see that we were above a lot of the areas. But now, if you look at July, we're the blue line and we're below what the other rates are. It's because of our investments that we purchased at the lower rate, and then they'll mature, and then we'll move up. So when rates are declining, we do really well when we've committed to these longer periods. But when interest rates rise, it takes us a little lag time to get caught up there. So we'll catch up, but it's just where we are in the moment of time. So we'll see that graph there. The middle graph, the 3-year portfolio balance, somewhat consistent. We are a little higher again. We have some of those ARPA funds, but you can see there's definitely a trend there. And Commissioner Chang, we already mentioned about the maturity schedule going forward. So any questions on Treasury report before we get to the other financials?
Well, the good news is our funds are so invested on a safety basis that we don't have the loss that you can see when the market loss is rather significant this year to date.
That is correct.
Yeah, significantly huge market loss. So anyway, thank you for following all those rules.
That's right, it's a good thing. Okay, so next we'll move on to the financial report. So I'm going to start by looking at page 66 in your packet. Thank you, make sure. Yep. So this is a general fund, basically, again, page 66 in your packet, the budget to actuals for the general fund report, the dashboard here. Just a reminder, as we're looking at this first quarter, we should be at 25% of the fiscal year, so revenues and expenses typically would be at 25%. And the reminder for the general fund when we look at revenues, as mentioned, our major revenue source are property taxes, which come in November. So we haven't received those yet as of this quarter. Expenses year-to-date are $10.9 million, which is about 24.7% of the budget. So that's about right on target for where we should be. And by comparison, last year's year-to-date was $10 million and 23% of the budget, so 10.1. So we're right about where we should be as well. So, and then just some highlights from the dashboard. We'll get into some of the details here as well.
So one of the things I think of is we have open positions and we're trying to recruit in some different departments. But, you know, maybe overtime is really taking up any of that headroom too. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that or if it's easy to see that.
Yeah, yes, Commissioner, when we get into a lot of the details of the countywide or the individual funds, you will see the vacancy savings. And when we look at the projections in out years, some funds have decreased their expenditure projections for the year. A lot of times it's due to vacancy savings for here. And I did skip to page 65, so let's go back to that for a moment.
I think we need to because
Yes.
911 is still significantly short, even though the call schedule has gone down to like 850 a day.
I've been mentioning it all over town.
Yeah, it was it was 1,000 this summer a day that they received, but we need people to realize that this is a opportunity for a career.
Absolutely, and as you know, they're proactive in trying to hire people as quickly as they can for that. There is a great need there.
The testing has changed. It's much more user-friendly. You only have to type 42 words a minute. They don't have to be I mean, there's a lot of really wonderful things that they've done to start attracting more people to those positions. But it is a calling, because it is it's a serious responsibility.
Yes.
When you work for 911.
So yes, and thank you for that position control summary on page 65 in your packet. We do have an unfilled rate of about 11% right now. And yes, there are positions down in 911. We did increase positions from the last 2 months. Total positions for July and August were 1,219.56. This month, it's 1,230.76, which is an increase of about 11, which that was from the Health Services Department that was approved. So you'll notice on the Health Services line, they went from, they increased their total from 405.3 to 416.55, their total FTE there. All right, so we will move on now to page 67 in your packet. This is the countywide summary. One of the changes I want to just speak to on or highlighted items is the Fund 200 American Rescue Fund. You will see there's $24 million there in the actuals where the budget was less. And that's due to timing of the revenue did come in prior years, but it was deferred because we didn't earn it. And so it's booked in actual this year. So that'll be why the difference. You'll notice what's the big difference on the revenues. That's due to the ARPA revenue. So if you flip to page 70 in your packet, which is, again, the last page of the countywide summary, all departments, the last column, the projection there, you'll see the estimated fund balance is 160 million, which is 30 million more than budget. Again, that's due to the increase in revenues by $28 million, the projection, but again, 24 million of that was for the ARPA funds. It's the timing of recognizing that revenue. And expenditures are down 9.7 million. And again, a lot of that is due to the vacancy savings that we'll realize there. And we'll get into some of these details in these funds now. So again, back to the general fund on page 71. As I mentioned at the beginning, the top line is the property taxes current. Again, not much received yet. Again, it starts in November. We'll start seeing those revenues come in. So that's when we'll see those.
There's people walking in regularly right now. It looks
That's
like.
right.
It's starting right now.
So the next quarterly report, you'll see those numbers. Again, October won't have a lot of revenue in it, but it'll start coming in slowly in October, but you'll see a lot in November. And expenditures for the general fund, you'll see note E, F, and G. That's where you start seeing some of the larger numbers, almost 400,000 for the assessor and the district attorney as well. Those are vacancy savings there, which all impacts the general fund. Finally, and this will be also a consistent theme you'll notice with a lot of these funds. If you look down on the bottom of it, fund balance, where it says beginning fund balance, if you look at in the middle column for budget of the general fund, it's 12.9. But then if you look at the last set of columns, projection, it's actually 13.8. So for this fund, it's an increase of 872. So as we're finalizing our fiscal year 22 numbers, we're going to know what the final end balance for fiscal year 22 is. Then we'll adjust the projection. That's where the projection's coming from. Because the fiscal year 22 ending balance obviously is fiscal year 23 beginning balance. So you'll see some increases in projected fund balance due to now that we have the final numbers for fiscal year 22, or near final. All right, page 72, the juvenile fund. Same thing, they're basically note C is their personal services will have a savings there, and they have a fund balance increase projected of 276,000. So there'll be an increase in fund balance for that fund as well. Page 73 is the TRT funds. And a couple items to point out here. And you all, I believe you've seen some of the numbers with TRT continues to come in strong, continues to come in increase over last year. Historically, the last couple of years, as you are well aware, have increased quite a bit in TRT revenue compared to previous years. We are projecting in note A on the room taxes that they are up 7% already in the first few months here. And grants and contributions, which under the requirements, just a reminder that includes there's budget of 5.6 million and actual of 4 million. So this includes the $4 million payment to Sun River Services District, $1 million to Mount Bachelor, and $600,000 for the Deschutes County Trail, which makes up that 5.6. And so we're working on those numbers. If you look, and I just want to point this out, total requirements for fiscal year 22 was 3.8 million. You'll notice the projection for fiscal year 23 of total requirements is 13 million. So it's a $10 million increase. And again, it's made up of a lot of those items that we just mentioned for the $4 million to Sun River. And it also includes the 3.5 million that went to capital reserve. So that makes up why the expenditures are so much higher this year. Coming down to the fund balance section here, for the projections, again, you'll see beginning fund balance will be 9.4, which is close to what we guesstimated it to be. And then ending the year, once we complete this year, at $4.1 million, almost 4.2. So there's a $4 million fund balance in this, but you have to remember, the board has made a decision to also fund $4 million, $2 million over the next 2 years, also for the Sun River Services District, So essentially, the fund balance where we're projecting at this, it's committed at this point. It'll be in the new year when we'll have excess funds available for that. Next fund, page 74 for ARPA, Fund 200. Again, we talked a little bit about that already with the timing of the revenue. That's one of the main issues there. And item C, we are projecting, what makes up those items is $6.77 million in the child care early education funding, 6.9 in housing support for the unhoused persons, and over 7.3 in affordable housing projects. What's not reflected here, which will be in the next month's report, is the local assistance for tribal consistency fund, which is another part of the ARPA funds. That revenue the first half of that revenue did come in October. So you'll see that reflected next month there. And that's 2.3 million there.
And we're going to put that in Fund 200, or we're going to put it somewhere else?
It will be put in ARPA Fund 200. It'll be in separate orgs, so we're tracking it separately because it is separate funding sources. Okay, I'm going to go to Sheriff's Office Fund 255, page 76 in your packet. Again, just want to point out they haven't received their property taxes yet. Obviously, November, it's going to be coming in. That's why the revenue is only at 4%. Down at fund balance, their beginning fund balance will increase 1.4 million once we have the final numbers from fiscal year 22, which changes their beginning fund balance. So that'll be a good sign for them. Page 77 is the Health Services Fund, 274. Their revenues are about 22% thus far, their total resources, which is a variance of 2.6 million. And again, if you look at their fund balance carryover, it's an increase of, which is the very last column, the variance, $2.7 million in the favor. And their expenses, I say their resources over requirements, it's less than they anticipated based on their projections. So, which means a positive change of $8 million in their total fund balance. Still, so they anticipated last year their ending fund balance would be $11 million, 11.2, and they ended up at $14 million once they do the carry forward. So it's a little better than what they were projecting at the time. So I'll flip to page 79 in your packet, Health Services Behavioral Health Fund. That's just, as you know, the 274 is a consolidated of their different divisions, and 274 is specifically to behavioral health. This is where the breakdowns are in Fund 274. Page 80 as well as a sub-fund of those numbers. I'm going to flip a few pages. The other funds are just, they're coming in as expected, so nothing to highlight as much there. Road Fund CIP, page 84 in your packet. Again, this is another one where the beginning fund balance as we closed out fiscal year 22, the numbers aren't, again, they're not final, but they're near final. They were anticipating their budgeted beginning fund balance in the fund balance row, 24.5 million. It came in at 27.2, so an increase of 2.6 million. And again, these funds carry over, so there's projects dedicated to those. And the next page has a detailed breakout of their projects. Going to do some, since we did have, you did have a report from the fair, so I'm going to skip through those fair funds, but if you do have any questions, obviously, we can talk about those. And I'm going to go to Risk Management Fund 670, page 93 in your packet. Risk Management Fund 670. Again, I'm repeating the story here, but I just wanted to make sure you point out and see the difference in some of these funds. The fund balance at the bottom, as again, that's the good thing, I guess, as we're looking at our budgets and projections. When we get our final numbers from fiscal year 22, that means the anticipated 7.6 million beginning fund balance, but they're actually at 8.9, a difference of 1.2. So those are, it's nice when it's favorable in that way, as opposed to the next fund, Health Benefits Fund 675 on page 94 in your packet. If you look at their fund balance, the beginning fund balance for the budget was 11.9. What was actually, we're projecting to be carried over is 11.3 based on final fiscal year 22 numbers. So this one's actually 621,000 less. I think we know, and you've heard that we've been spending more as there's been pent up medical needs, and people are now going to the doctors again, getting their knees replaced, their hips, their shoulders, whatever. There's been more costs lately in the health benefits fund because of this pent up medical need that's been brewing, I guess.
And when we talked about this a few months ago, HR was anticipating that trend would continue into this fiscal year. Now that we're, a quarter into this fiscal year, do we have any sense yet of whether that is still the case, that there's this pent up demand that is resulting in?
We're only a couple months into it, as far as because claims are delayed from when a month by the time we get it, but it is trending higher a little bit so far. But the consultant, actually, we just had a meeting yesterday, was saying that they are anticipating as a whole that there is still a little bit of pent up need there for people seeing resources, but we also anticipate that it will level out back to normal at some point. Just as far as the timing is, when will that occur? And then it's also a balance of, there's some of that pent up need, but if you have a couple of large claims, that could also offset some of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, someone shared some information with me about, COVID hospitalizations, COVID workers' comp claims, and that was not insignificant.
Right. We enjoyed the savings during COVID, where the medical claims and the costs and expenses were really low, but you can see the graph goes up after COVID. Mm-hmm. Okay, and finally, the last one, 911, we were speaking about their need as well for positions, and that is basically why they are anticipating some savings here of about $1 million. Page 95 in your packet, $1 million in vacancy savings, and so there is a great need to fund those positions.
It's really not a savings at all. I mean, we're impacting supervisors, the shortage. Oh, gosh. Let's hope that people realize it is a career and a great place to work. So I know Sarah and her team are trying their very best to bring in more people. But it is our responsibility to answer, public safety, and really hoping that we'll have some people in our community that will sign up, do their testing. It's very easy.
Yeah, I don't look very positively on vacancy savings for any of our departments.
Well, Robert, thank you very much. This is first time solo with this, huh? But I mean, there's a whole system, a lot of stuff behind this, and everybody's supporting you. But thank you very much, and looks like you got the big picture at least. Yeah.
And the good news is Moss Adams said they had worked with you, and they were delighted to continue to work with you over here. So
right, it's good. Our independent auditors.
Yes, independent.
Yep.
And thanks for bringing your own style and kind of insights and goals to these reports, this position.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Wonderful, thank you. I do believe we have item number 10. Jeff, would you like to join us, please?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Item 10 will be consideration of signature on document number 2022-858, which will be a notice of intent to award contract to Alliance Systems. This will be for the contract, or notice of intent to award for the contract for the HVAC controls systems upgrade at Deschutes County Fair and Expo campus. This will be to replace the system that has failing and or failed on the campus of Deschutes County Fair and Expo. And it will also include some upgrades to provide energy efficiency for the utilization of that HVAC system throughout the campus. Part of this program is funded through budget funds for this year, but this is also part of the program for the grant that we submitted and were awarded that you approved several weeks ago. Ultimately, this project will have the opportunity to come in at zero impact or $0 funding for Deschutes County by the time we're done utilizing Energy Trust of Oregon grant savings, as well as Business Oregon grant funding for this project. But in order to continue to proceed, we need to provide that notice of intent to award after having gone through a formal RFP process for the bidding due to the value of these contracts, and comes before you today for your review and hopefully approval.
Well, it looks like just a great project coming together, a need at the facility. It'll be great to have a whole generation newer controls in there. I always, and this isn't the same thing, but I always celebrate the LED lights, the quick responding lights in the arena even, because those old sodium vapor or whatever they were, that was just a whole different world. So I got to imagine that's where we're going here. You'll have more information, more efficiency, and more ease of control too.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think joined by Lee Rando, Facilities Department, who prepared that RFP, and certainly
Lee will probably have all the data on his phone, I guess, in the end.
much more technically or
Yep.
clear about the efficiencies of the new programs than I, but it'll be similar to that upgrade. It'll be a much better, more modern system, and also allows us to expand upon that, utilizing the technology that they scoped as part of this project.
Well, I was afraid that the First Interstate building wasn't going to have heat in it, but we were fine. So I was like, okay, what's not working at the fairgrounds?
Yeah, really glad we can tap into those Energy Trust and Business Oregon incentives for this important project.
Great.
Nobody
Yeah.
has anything else?
Go ahead.
I'll move approval of document number 2022-858, a notice of intent to award contract to Alliance Systems for HVAC system upgrades at Deschutes County Fair and Expo.
And just share signature.
Yeah, there's,
Interject real quick.
Yes, I was wondering.
Apologize to interrupt. And I should have noticed this sooner, and I apologize.
We've
for
got two
calling you
numbers.
guys. But as far as the notice of intent, I just want to make clear that we probably need to update the notice as far as the expiration of the protest period. It looks like it's beyond the 7 calendar days. So if we could just maybe update that. If we're sending out the letter on today's date, it should probably be November 2nd.
Okay, yes.
Sorry, just before we
Not a
take
problem.
formal action on
And
that,
then
I apologize.
chair signature also.
Yeah.
oh,
It's just one signature.
Okay.
okay.
And chair signature, and with the revision to the expiration date as described.
I will second it.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
Commissioner DeBonne?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Thank you.
Now, Kim, in the set, it says recommended a motion of 2021-954. Why is that presented that way?
858. So there was an
There was
update.
a revised one, I believe.
Yeah, there's a
Okay.
revised one. It came in like yesterday,
Okay, well, I didn't get that one
but
anyway.
pretty much the same content there.
Oh, right. Okay,
Same
great.
contract.
Yeah.
Yep.
This plus I think there was an executive session item that was in my boxes.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think you guys are good to go then. Thank you for
Thank you.
making the trek down Highway 97. All right, other items? I'm sure that Nick wants to report that he was at the Oregon Duck game on Saturday with fabulous seats, seeing our team win.
I think my voice is finally coming back.
Good, good. Well, I was really happy that you were there representing the county. I did have a vision review meeting in Sisters 2 days ago with Curtis Scholl, with Ian Reed, several other people of Sisters Visioning on what we will be doing in the future with that group. So that was a good meeting.
I was able to attend the Comprehensive Plan 2040 open house at the Shark on Monday afternoon. So it was good to see some of the residents and talk business with them. Comprehensive discussions.
Yeah, I was able to make a very short bit of the one that we held here last week. Spent most of my time talking with people about Worrell Park, though. And yeah, I would also just report back that, or report forward that tomorrow, Thursday and Friday, the newly created Oregon Conservation Corps Advisory Board, on which I sit, is meeting here in Central Oregon in Deschutes County. On Friday, there'll be a tour of project sites. One that the youth fuels crew that program is supporting is working on. One of the sites is going to be, I guess the site we're going to visit where the work is happening is in South County off Vanderbilt Road, and then there'll be a meeting with some of the youth crew members in later morning in Redmond. If anyone's interested in joining for any of that.
I'll be there on the tour on Friday morning.
Great.
So Redmond Economic Development has a news and brews is just a economic development get together this afternoon at 4 to 5:30 or so at the Wild Ride Brewing in Redmond. So just economic development efforts.
And, okay.
One other thing I just wanted to flag, I don't know if there's any need to discuss it today, is yes, my fellow commissioners may have heard, there was an incident in Grant County where the sheriff's office arrested a Forest Service firefighter burn boss at a prescribed fire out there that escaped. And I'm very concerned about this because I think it is a potentially a very chilling message to send to people who are trying to plan and implement prescribed fire activities to protect our community from wildfire. So I don't know whether there's going to be discussion of items like this at the EOCA or at with the legislative calls with Senator Findley and other Eastern Oregon legislators going into the next few months. But to the extent that there are, I would actually really like to be involved in those discussions. So just asking to the extent that stuff is coming up, that we get some reports back here and we have a chance to discuss it.
All right. Any other executive items to date? Anything else? No?
Executive?
Excuse me, other items, so we can go into executive session. I do believe we have 2 things on the agenda. All right. So we need to go into executive session then.
Can we take a break real quick?
Sure, we'll take a quick break, if you don't mind.